morning. I'd like to call the Blue Earth County Board of Commissioners meeting to order, March 13th, 2018. And let's all stand and say our pledge of allegiance to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next, we've got our agenda review. Is there anybody that wants to add or change anything? Bob, do you have anything?
Mr. Chair, there are no changes to the agenda today.
I'll move the review.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval of our agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Our first item of business today then will be the asbestos abatement bid award. We've got Mr. Tim Edwards here, our physical plant director.
Morning, Tim.
Come on up.
Yeah, good morning, Tim.
Morning, Tim.
Morning.
Morning.
Everybody?
Good. Good.
Well, thank you. Just wanted to give you a little update on, we bid out the asbestos abatement for the government center project over there. Bids were received on February 5th, and we kind of opened them, verified with the contractors. We had 4 bids. Low bid came in at $230,000 from Platson Environmental. After reviewing their bids and talking with the contractor, they believe they missed a bunch of items on the project, so they pulled their bid of the $230,000. So we talked with the next low bid of EnviroBait, and we have worked with EnviroBait before on some projects. Very good company. They had a low bid of $311,270. We feel they're capable. They're a larger firm as well. They're capable of doing the job, and if they needed to pull more guys to the job, they're set up to do that. So our recommendation would be to go with the second low bid of $311,270.
Okay.
And that would be pretty much doing all the abatement of floor tile, all the pipe insulation, so that entire building would be clean of asbestos there.
Chair?
Yes, Commissioner.
I'd like to ask a question. What was the county's estimate on this?
We figured in around the $250,000 price range is what they thought it was.
So it's above estimate.
Correct.
Where's the, Mr. Chair, where's
Yes.
where's EnviroBait from? Is it cities or?
They're based out of the Twin Cities.
Twin Cities,
Yep.
okay.
Most of these
are?
Some of these larger firms have, based out of the cities, and they have I'll call it a sub office out of Rochester.
Okay.
Oh, okay. The only question I had too was, I asked Bob, but was wondering if there was any type of grant programs that they tried to look for, or if our project manager maybe looked for any, or on this, on the whole deal, thinking that there might be something out there from the state PCA or DEED or somebody that could help us with the project of the abatement.
We did look out there. There is some stuff out there for buildings on the National Historical Register, but it's kind of a matching fund type thing, not really a grant.
Okay.
But since the government center's not on the National Historical Register,
Okay.
this building would be all right, but it'd be a matching fund type thing. So.
Okay. All right.
Vance, if I can answer back to your question too, we also looked at adding into this, there is a floor mastic that's on the floor underneath the tile. It's a black mastic that goes down there. In this contract, they would be grinding off all that black mastic as well. So our $250,000 didn't include that in the beginning. We just said take care of the asbestos and get that out, but to have a clean floor, to redo tile, flooring, any carpeting, to get that black mastic off would be ideal as well. So they got to come in with some large grinders to clear off that mastic as well. It's not asbestos mastic, but it's still an issue with the flooring to get it cleaned to do. So that's an additional pricing on their work as well.
Okay. Chair,
Okay. Yes,
I
Commissioner.
would move that we go with EnviroBait.
Second.
All right, so we've got motion and a second to go ahead with the lowest bid, since the other bidder decided to drop out. And that's $311,270. Is there any more discussion or comments about the bid for asbestos abatement? And as you said, they've done this kind of thing before.
Correct, yep, we've used them before on other projects, a lot more pipe insulation and some floor tiles.
Yeah,
So,
I know that whenever, I'm sure the employees are gonna be concerned too, but, because I'm sure they have to do it floor by floor possibly, or how, I don't know how they're gonna stage it exactly. But people will be working in the building while they're doing it.
Correct,
And
yep.
so they'll probably have a, go ahead, go ahead.
Yep, we get, we'll have it all polyed off, kind of their shower stations and air monitoring throughout, 24/7 to check all the air testings and everything else to make sure we're okay to, we don't have any issues.
Any mixing in the system of the air
Yep,
system.
Yep, they have a HEPA machine that they'll attach in there and bring in the natural air, outside air as well to mix all that as well, so.
So they have their own ventilation, more or less.
Yep, it sucks through that HEPA, it's like a big
Yeah,
vac. It's a
yeah.
HEPA vac, so it sucks through there.
Okay.
Kind of cleans everything up as well.
And I don't know if everybody's made any plans on this, but I'm still thinking about these things, health and all policies. It's kind of a new thing going on in a lot of governments today, local government. And just to think about the health ramifications of this project, and this is obviously one of them. So maybe to educate somehow our employees, before the project, or right when it's getting ready to start, so they could understand that there's
Feel
going to be
more comfortable with
yeah, there's going to be
what's going
a fresh air coming in. We're going to they'll have a blower with a filter, and it's not going to mix with the current system, and just those basics can put people's minds at ease.
Yep.
Because I have worked in environments where they've done asbestos, and I was on the safety committee, and I can tell you that was a primary concern of all the employees, was how safe is it for us to be in here when they're doing this, and so I would appreciate it. I'm sure the board would too, just to educate. What do you think? Educate the employees about it.
What we can do is, prior to this starting, because we're looking at, what is it, a kind of a 2019 start for this project when we move into, get the new building done and move into the existing building. We can bring in IEA, which is Institute for Environmental Assessment, that will be doing all our monitoring.
Okay.
And then maybe meet with the departments and say, this is our testing, what we'll be doing to make sure
Yeah.
everything is okay with the air that's flowing through the building.
And it can,
And
they probably have some information that can be posted right on our internal website too, couldn't it, for the employees?
Correct, yeah. We can post something out
What do
there.
you think, Bob?
Yeah, we have set up a internal page on our portal that we're communicating about the project, so we can certainly include information about this. It has surfaced in our labor management committee, so you're right, there are concerns about it out there, but I can tell you we've been abating asbestos in our buildings for decades, and we certainly want to do it in the safest way possible.
I get a chuckle out of it. We'll have a truck come in the parking lot that has asbestos, it says asbestos on it, and people are like, yeah, I can tell that in my throat already, and it's like, we haven't started anything yet. The truck's out there, but that's about it.
Psychosomatic, yeah, psychosomatic issues.
Yep.
No, I know, yeah. All right, anything else? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Bid award carries.
All right, thank you very much. I will, I'll get contracts rolling on it and get them on board, and then we'll,
Okay.
hopefully project rolls along good and we can get at this one as well.
Sounds good, yeah.
Thanks, Tim.
Thanks a
All
lot,
right,
Tim.
thank you.
Thank you. So our next item up here for business is our County Ditch 48 bid award. Craig. Morning, Craig.
Hey, Craig.
Morning, Craig.
Good
Good morning, how are you?
Okay. Again, yeah, I'm here for the bid award for Blue Earth County Ditch 48. On February 28th, we had online bids. We had 10 bids. The low bidder was Gustafson Drainage, LLC from Lake Crystal with a bid of $731,600. $72.13. The engineer's estimate was $829,100, so the bid came in 9.66% under the
Yeah.
engineer's estimate,
Okay.
so it's good. Both ISG and Blue Earth County, we've worked with Gustafson Drainage before, and they've done a good job for us in the past.
Okay.
So we are recommending that we award the bid to Gustafson Drainage LLC.
Move approval?
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion for approval of Gustafson Drainage LLC and a second. And I was just wondering, is there anybody who'd like to make any comments or has any questions?
Just happy it's a local
Yep.
company. It's always, you know, we don't have that choice whether it's local or not, but when it is, it's a plus to Blue Earth County and the residents, so.
Yeah, they know our soils and they know some of our networks, they know all the different
Yep.
things, a lot of them,
The
so,
money comes back to us.
yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
All right, well, thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thanks,
a lot.
Greg.
Yeah. Our next item of business on our agenda this morning is the elections voting equipment grant. And we've got Mr. Michael Stahlberger, our Taxpayer Services Director. Welcome.
Morning, Michael.
Morning, Mike.
Good morning,
Hi, Mike.
Mr. Chair, members of the board.
Good morning.
All right, yes, starting on page 7 of your board packet today, we do have a memorandum summarizing a grant we are receiving on behalf of the Secretary of State, administered by the state of Minnesota. This is for the elections equipment grant that was funded by the legislature last year. It allocated $7 million across the state of Minnesota to be divided up amongst the various precincts throughout the state that applied for it. Blue Earth County applied for it and did receive their share of the grant of over $100,332. Don't know how to describe that in a shorter version for you. Anyway, so that's our share. Fun little trivia fact for you is that is $1,858 per precinct, which is also when Minnesota became a state.
Oh.
The Secretary of State decided to share that fact with us, so I'm sharing it with
very
you.
interesting, yeah.
100%.
Just happened to divide out that way. Blue Earth County will be using that grant to fund tabulators, which are scanners, our ballot counters that we use in the precinct and at our elections office. That has been quoted from our vendor, and so we will be using $8,000 of that grant with a match from the county for another $8,000 and then additional capital funds to purchase those here in 2018. The vast majority of the grant will be used to fund electronic rosters, or what they're calling poll pads in our polling places. That will make the process more efficient for our same-day voter registrants, as they'll do that on an iPad, much like you're working on right now, and that will automatically input that data into our statewide system, reducing a significant amount of our overtime elections cost after the election. It's also going to keep that information more on time and in the precinct, so that we'll be able to make sure that folks are registered to vote appropriately before they vote. The state is matching that at a much higher rate. So we're actually receiving $92,000 for that, matching it with $30,000 of county dollars for a total of $122,000. The total purchase price for that this year will be $152,000. So the county's capital budget will make up the difference. Our services department budget will make up the difference there. So in all, we're looking for approval of the grant so that we can accept the $100,000 and spend it appropriately on elections equipment.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second for approval, accepting this grant and using it for elections equipment. Is there some more discussion from the board?
You said these are,
Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, electronic rosters?
Correct, yep.
So what are those, are they different, they're newer technology, or?
They are a newer technology, but they have been used in the state of Minnesota and in other states as well for a while. I can pass around a couple of different books if you want to look at it to see a picture of it. What they do is they take our rosters that the state provides through their statewide system and allows us to bring that out into the polling place so that it is live data that is updated. There's another picture there.
So they would be for the judges there?
Yep,
election
so the
to
judges will
look at?
use those. So the way that the
Okay.
process works right now is if we have a voter who is coming in on election day and they're not registered, they fill out a paper form. Our election judge has to validate a driver's license and work through other forms of identification to make sure that they're eligible to vote. and that's all done on paper. They'll type in information now onto the poll pad. They'll actually swipe that driver's license or use the other fields to complete that information, and then that'll automatically hit the roster so that that voter, if that voter was going to try to manipulate the system and go somewhere else and vote again, they wouldn't be able to because they'll already be in the system.
Does it set off a big buzzer then? No.
It doesn't set off a buzzer, but it'll actually notify the election
Okay.
judge that they have already registered and voted. Because what happens is as that voter checks in, they'll actually sign on that poll pad and they'll sign that roster and it'll show as them having voted. So it's a great way to streamline the process for the voters, but it also cleans up our reporting after the fact.
So they have several ways of accessing it, though. It's not just a driver's license, correct?
Correct, yeah. The driver's license is the easiest way on here because it literally is a swipe of that, of the magnetic strip on there. But if they do need to register with a utility bill or something like that, the device will actually tell the driver what to look for, how to look for it, and then how to enter it. So it's a really good
information.
tool.
Yeah,
Yep, absolutely.
okay.
Yep.
That's
And it also is,
interesting.
it's much more, like I said, up to date so that we aren't printing out
Interesting.
reams of paper.
Yeah, we got
Yeah, so
Thank you,
that
yeah.
is where we're investing a good portion of the money, just as a way to streamline that process. As we work through the elections and we hear where our pain points are, it's oftentimes people checking in to vote. That's where you find the lines. It's sometimes longer to check in to vote than to actually cast the ballot. And so in this instance, we'll be able to do all of that electronically now. And we are implementing those in the beginning in the city of Mankato, the city of Lake Crystal, and the city of Eagle Lake. That's where we have the volume of voters that would support that.
Good, sounds good. Anything else, anybody?
Yeah, you would, excuse me, Mr. Chair, you wouldn't really, I mean, the townships and so forth, most of those are mail ballot and all that, so.
Yeah, most of our townships vote by mail already, and we will we'll look at using that technology in the other locations that do have a fair number of voters yet as we roll it out. We just wanted to make sure that we knew how to use that and could handle all of our situations first, and then we can start looking at bringing 1 or 2 units out into some of those more lessly populated with voters areas.
It's very good.
Good job.
Yeah, no, it sounds good. And I see that you also had it budgeted for this year on capital in your, for elections. It was already in there.
Correct. Yep. We're budgeted for it, and this grant will just help us not have to use all of that budget. So.
That's good.
Get a motion for that?
It's already.
Yep, we do.
Yeah, that's.
I think you made it, I think. We have a motion and we already have a second, so all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Michael.
Thanks, Michael.
Our next item of business here is in the Public Works Department with Mr. Ryan Tilges, our county engineer. So
Morning,
come on up,
gentlemen.
Ryan.
Morning, Ryan.
How are you today? Good.
Let me think. I gotta think a second here.
All right, I'll give you a minute.
It's not enough.
Too late. No. Looks like you've got a nice agenda of action items and even informational items here.
Believe it or not, we're staying busy at Public Works Department.
Yeah. Really?
The first order of business that I have for you gentlemen today is consideration of bids for state aid project 007-652-003, which is our county state aid highway 52 bridge replacement. We went over this bridge during our road tour. This is just, I believe, northeast of Mapleton, about a couple of miles. It's a bridge that's going to be partially funded with state bridge bonds, 50% of the eligible bridge costs. So we received 6 bidders, so very good time to put bids out. The low bid was Icon Constructors in the amount of $828,633.65, which was just 2% over our engineer's estimate. All in all, we think we received fairly good bids. We were out early in the season, which is always good practice. So with that being said, Icon is currently working on our county stated Highway 5 bridges, and it's progressed fairly well. They've done a couple of other projects for us in the past. So with that being said, I would recommend award of the bid to Icon Constructors. There is a copy of the detailed bid abstract for your information that's attached. We release that to the public after the bids are awarded.
I'll move approval.
Second.
Okay, we've got motion for approval, and we have 2 seconds.
Choose your poison.
Yeah. And this looks like from the way it's written out here, that it's a complete removal and.
Complete bridge replacement and reconstruction, correct?
Yeah.
We're not able to salvage the existing abutments or anything like that. We're like we were able to do on the county stated Highway 5 bridges that we're currently constructing.
Okay. Are there any other questions or comments from the board? Nope. Are there any damages? I didn't really read through.
No, it's
So they-
just an old bridge that's due to be upgraded.
Okay. Okay.
So we've been talking about this one for quite a
Years.
while.
It's been on our list and
Yeah.
in our in-queue list of projects
Yeah.
for quite some time,
your
sitting on the
district?
shelf. And
Is it
This come from the bonding?
this this funding,
last
50%
year?
of the bridge eligible costs were funded from the 2017. So the three redecking projects on County Road 5 and this project were a direct result of the
All of those.
local bridge replacement
So
funding.
we benefited from last
Absolutely.
year's bonding quite a bit.
We did. 50% of the bridge eligible costs were historically, when there's more money available, we've seen up to 80%.
Right.
50%, that way they're spreading it around the state as much as possible.
Well, good. Anything else? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries.
Right, fantastic. The second order of business is consideration of bids for contract number 1841091. Here's a detailed contract bid abstract. This is for County Road 109. As you recall, we reconstructed the segment from Stated Highway 6 to 11 last year. Left it as a gravel road to allow some of the pipe trench and the grading work to go through a freeze-thaw cycle in case of any settlement. So this is putting the top couple of inches of aggregate base on the road, paving the road, completing the turf establishment and shouldering work. And it's also placing an overlay on the segment from County Stated Highway 6 to the south at the intersection with Minnesota Highway 60. And the reason we're doing that segment is it brings everything up to a 10-ton design standard so that the farm to market traffic doesn't have any reduced load postings. We received 3 bids, very good bids. Our engineer's estimate was $1.471 million, and we got a low bid from Central Specialties at $1.099, which was 25% under our engineer's estimate. So we were being conservative with our budgeting, just wanting to make sure that we were able to cover it. But yeah, we're very eager to get our overlays out too if we're going to see this kind of pricing. So it's phenomenal. It'll help us to have a little bit more capita and free up some room as we complete the 12 project of our local option sales tax money that was paying for the majority of this work.
I thought, yeah.
So I would recommend award to Central Specialties Incorporated.
Move approval. Second.
We've got a motion for approval, and we've got a second. Does the board have any questions or more comments about this project?
You worked with them before, Ryan?
They did they generally come in and they get our bituminous maintenance overlays about every other year or so. They overlaid County Stated Highway 42 last year on the second round of overlays that we sent out. They generally hit our northwest corner of the county fairly hard because they lease room from the New Ulm aggregate quarry, so that's where they set up their plant. They're out of Alexandria, but they do a considerable amount of paving for us.
That's an unbelievable savings to the county, so that's pretty awesome.
Really nice.
I about fell out of my chair. In fact, I think we were at Transportation Alliance when I saw these bids
Yeah, I
through my
remember
email.
you telling me about it.
You saw how giddy I was, so.
I'm not going to say.
It's the strange things that we get excited about.
Yeah. But it was something else.
That's your job, that's what you do.
If there's nothing else, then all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries.
The next order of business that we have is consideration of bids for the maintenance gravel crushing contract. We received 2 bids this year, one from Southern Minnesota Construction and second bid from Holtmeyer Construction. Very, very close bids, in fact, within a nickel of each other. SMC was $6.55 per ton and Holtmeyer was $6.50 per ton. With an optional, that was for 40,000 tons of gravel, with an option for us to pursue crushing of bituminous recycled asphalt, and Holtmeyer was low on that by a quarter, for a total low bid of $260,000 for Holtmeyer, so I would recommend award of that bid to Holtmeyer Construction.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion for approval and a second. Is there any more comments or questions?
That's pretty amazing that it was, you have a
Very tight.
pretty tight, over $260,000 and a $2,000 difference in the
It's almost
bid.
like the same bid, yeah. It's
That's
amazing.
pretty amazing.
Mhm.
All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the motion carries.
Next action item is consideration of bids for the maintenance motor grader rental. This is the very southwestern corner of Blue Earth County. We received for the second year in a row, we only received one bid from Erosion Control Plus Incorporated. And you can see their 2017 versus their 2018 unit bid prices did escalate a little bit, which is common with employee costs and such. You know, this is an interesting situation because in the past we'd always had two bidders going after this work at a minimum. And as we look at that, it's effectively a full plowing and maintenance route for blading in the summer. So if we were to go away from this contract type of work in the southwestern corner of the county, we'd really be faced with two different alternatives: adding another driver and another motor grader to the fleet to effectively be able to cover this route with the same level of service and with the same coverage rates, or adjusting the routes out of the Good Thunder and Vernon Center shops, which would reduce the level of service effectively for the southwestern quarter of the county, as well as the portion of the southern Mankato MPO limits, County State Highway 90 and such, because those routes would see reduced coverage as well. With that being said, we did advertise this on our eGram site that posts all of our bids electronically onto the county's website, and it also was cross-referenced to the Minnesota Department of Transportation e-advertising site. So it was put out there, but given the proximity and the population density in that part of the county, there's not a lot of contractors that are going after it. So for the time being, this year I would certainly recommend continuing to have Erosion Control Plus, formerly Wertz Construction, be awarded the 2018 contract.
Move approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval for Erosion Control Plus to take this contract. Any questions or comments?
I have a question. Have you ever run the numbers to see about what it would be to add a driver and a grader, to what it would look like?
Yes. You know, it totals for $65,000 for the year. That's effectively the cost of a driver, thereabouts, and not even including really, you know, say if you're talking $50,000 for just their flat out wage, plus their benefits and everything else, would be over $65,000 per year. And then you add in the cost of another motor grader to the fleet, it's considerably more. So this is a better value, given it doesn't require work on it every single day, and they are able to do it on an on-demand basis or on-call basis.
Well, the only difference is that if you'd hire that other driver, they'd be doing something else too.
Yep, we'd have additional
I mean, they
capacity in the
extra
summer.
Capacity, yeah.
Yep.
So
And winter.
you know,
Well, I suppose it's from this winter.
so it's something to look at in the future. Obviously, I think this is a good bid, that we should do this now, but you know, I know we can't hire a driver and buy another grader for this kind of money per year.
Yep.
But if you if you hire another driver, that driver's going to be doing year round.
Yep.
And might reduce cost in other areas.
It would provide us with extra capacity systematically as a whole. So it absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, it's an idea that we need to push around during budget time. Whether we add another driver and then reduce something like this, you know, and how will that affect us in the future? And it's something we can't sit there and do now, but it certainly is something to bring up when budget time comes around and you're asking for another employee.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Yes, Mr. Brunner.
Ryan, is this contract, is it just the gravel, or do they help with the snow?
This
snow in the
is
winter?
snow plowing.
Snow plowing.
So as you look at the bottom, the numbers, it says blade, estimated at 300 hours per year, so that's how many
Right.
hours that are out maintaining the gravel roads in the summer. And then the blade with snow plowing is at a slightly higher rate because of the additional snow plow equipment.
Sure.
And that's anticipated
Okay, I
at
do see it now. Now I
250
see
hours
that.
per year. So it's for that
So it's a
summer-
year-round
Summer gravel
contract.
maintenance, yep, and winter
Okay.
snow plowing.
Okay, thank you.
And then the only thought that goes through my mind on this is, I know we're completing, that's basically a 3-year process for County Road 1, our old 66, and that was a state highway which was plowed by state plows.
Yep.
When that's completed, have we already adjusted for that
We
yet?
have hired a new driver and bought another tandem truck to be housed out of the Good Thunder shop
Okay.
that is covering that route, along with providing some additional coverage on some of our busier
So that's
county
already
state
ready
highways.
to go then? It's
Yep,
already-
and that's where I was saying that if we were to eliminate this and not add employees or blades, during those snow events, it would reduce the level of service, and it would also impact the southerly Mankato South route and some of those busier South County State highways in Mankato region, because those are covered by the Good Thunder drivers, and we'd have to adjust all those routes so that we could try to make it fairly even.
Yeah. Okay, I just wasn't sure we'd already made that
we had done that.
compensation. I
Yep.
just was wondering.
Right, and
Okay.
Chair,
Yes.
and, if you take the estimate hours, it's about 550 hours, that's about 13 to 14 hours a week, or a year. So we got 52 weeks in a year.
Yes.
That driver would be doing a lot of other things
Correct.
for Blue Earth County, so.
Okay, anything else? Nope. All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries.
The next order of business is consideration of bids for County Project 7271, which is the Homeland Security Emergency Management Hazard Mitigation Grant Program. That's just a little bit of alphabet soup for you on your agenda. The Johnson Home Demolition, which this property is located out on River Park Drive. This is the third home that we're going to be acquiring and demolishing, that was ready to collapse into the river. If you remember, a couple of years ago, we did the Mealy's and Munson homes, and this is the one where
The same
river is-
neighborhood, too.
Yeah, same neighborhood. This is the one. It's on the LeSueur River, where the river has moved a couple of 100 feet, severely undercut the foundation of the home, and it's really an imminent threat of collapse. We are still working with HSEM, who administers the FEMA grant, to do a budget adjustment, because the appraisal for the property came in above what the figure we had used for the application. So they have to do a budget adjustment, and that they also have to do a budget adjustment because this bid came in a little bit over the engineer's estimate, 28,000 versus 20,000. So with that being said, the budget adjustment helps Mr. Johnson have less to pay in the end, because the FEMA grant covers 75% of the total project cost. The DNR has allocated the matching 25% for the total project cost up to the budgeted amount and slightly over. But we need to get an adjustment from FEMA before we award the contract, so that we can minimize how much it's going to cost the landowner out of his pocket. So once we get the budget adjustment completed, we'll close on the property, and then we'll execute the contract documents. So
How
the home will
long?
remain in the landowner's. The goal is that the county has minimal liability, so that the home still is the landowner's liability until the moment when the grant adjustment, the budget adjustment is completed. We'll close on the property and we'll execute the contract documents all simultaneously, so that the contractor can begin his work as soon as possible.
Mr. Chair, how long does it take FEMA to just take?
It's taken them forever to get the grant approved and get the funding allocated, but we're going to continue to try to push as hard as we can for them to do it quickly, because we are...
Hopefully, when the ice or whatever is out, I guess.
Absolutely, we are very concerned about that as well.
Okay, I'll move the hazardous mitigation grant.
All right, we got a motion and a second.
Yep.
Is there any further discussion?
Well, these aren't really fun to do, and I know people, when they see it, I'll get some calls, why are we doing this? But it's not going to happen all the time, and but
It's a fairly
Yes.
cumbersome
Yep.
grant process, and because it's federally funded, we have to dot our i's and cross our t's. It is a drain on staff time, but this is also the service that we provide to our citizens and looking out for the best interest and try to help them when we can.
And you have a question.
Yes, Will.
Are they still living in the property? Or is it-
No, he's vacated. He owns another home somewhere else, and he's got effectively everything out of this home.
he was out,
Last year.
before the part of his house was over the
Okay,
cliff,
good,
or
good.
edge. Yeah, he was actually out before that.
Isn't part of it over the edge right now, though?
Yeah, I'm sure it's, I don't
5
think
feet
it
of the
fit-
foundation
yeah.
is undercut.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
It's kind of
Just take
corner
a
of it.
picture, it's, no, it's,
Well, would like to see it. I mean,
it is.
We haven't been out there. Well, it's bad.
Yeah, I haven't
Yep.
seen this one. I think it's at least number 4, though, since I've been on the board.
We did do the Asher residence in Garden City.
That was
That
on
was the first one we did.
Is
Yep,
that
that
the Blue
was-
Earth River?
No?
That was
That was
different
a
funding
slot one.
source.
Slot one? Okay.
Yeah, that was through DNR flood damage reduction funds. But
Okay.
yeah, you're correct. We did do that one as well. I didn't have my hands on that one, so I
I know, I
failed
know.
to count it.
But you were in the office then, weren't you?
I was.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I know people like to live down by the river, and they don't realize how it can move. Will here, our
Oh, yeah.
Commissioner Purvis can testify if you want to tell him how much land.
I've lost 350 feet on my
I
farm.
wholeheartedly believe it.
People don't realize that can happen.
These rivers are relatively young and steep still, and they're still
Yeah.
finding their path.
I know we've talked about, what does it mean to have an actively eroding river bluff? And there are some, I would think, that would not necessarily be active as if it has limestone, or something more solid underneath it. But on most of our bluffs, it's just clay.
Correct.
And I think all river bluffs are pretty much actively eroding if they're within any vicinity of the river. So it's something we really got to think about in our
Setback.
Kip and Will on our planning and zoning going forward.
I agree.
Interesting to see what the river does. On my property, it's kind of corrected itself. There's a big log jam rolled in there and stopped right on the bend of the river where it was cutting so bad. And now the willows are growing up and it's not eroding as much. So
And at some point it'll meander to the point it'll choke itself off and it'll cut itself through and straighten itself back out. So
Yeah.
it's interesting to watch that riverine.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I guess in the scheme of things, most of our rivers in this county are considered young.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's why
Yes, in geological terms, they
Yep,
are.
yep. Well, that's good. Well, anything else anybody has to share about it? I hope things work out well for everything, and I hope that they can get going on it before we get some big spring rain.
We do too.
So, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Item number 6, resolution to amend the constitution and bylaws of the Park Advisory Committee. This is being brought forward to you because the Park Advisory Committee at the most recent meeting had decided they would like to review the bylaws that were originally established by the Blue Earth County Board. And with that being said, they had some very minor revisions to more accurately reflect their current practices, which is noted in the attachment behind the resolution. And really effectively, all they're doing is noting that the election of officers will be conducted at the beginning of each year, not necessarily in the specified month because the meetings were not always being held in January. And that's noted in Article 4 as well as Article 6. But that does require board approval for those revisions to be made.
I'll move approval.
Second?
We've got a motion and a second for approval. Is there any more discussion on these bylaws for our Parks Advisory Committee?
You said there are not a lot of changes to it? then?
No, and they're noted on the attachment that I provided.
Looked pretty simple to me.
They were
That's
pretty
the point.
simple, yeah.
Yeah, we had a good meeting and had a lot of business on our agenda. When was that, just a week ago, or when was it, a couple weeks ago?
A couple weeks ago.
Couple
yeah.
weeks ago.
Yep.
And we reviewed them there and everything, everybody seemed fine with it, so.
Good.
Yeah.
Great.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries.
All right. Next order of business, item number 7, which is another byproduct of the recent Park Advisory Committee meeting. An ongoing issue we've had over the last couple of years is people representing large groups, making reservations for our shelters at our parks, and having an event there. They're really starting to treat our parks as if they're an event center. The challenge that we have is that the capacity of the shelters is difficult to define, and we looked at several different sources, talked to the sheriff's office, talked to the fire marshal, because they're an open air structure. They're really not able to define a given limit. But when we have these people rent a shelter, and then all of a sudden you'll have 150 or 200 people show up at the park, it taxes our caretakers' ability to manage the event. It taxes the sanitary facilities for the toilets and things like that. We don't have the parking space for that many people to come out there, so they're parking on the lawn, tearing things up. So it's really something that we need to a little bit more closely regulate. So as we've worked with the Park Advisory Committee over the last couple of meetings, we had quite a bit of discussion on this matter. And really the consensus was that we would limit the maximum capacity to 80 people. And that's not to say that we wouldn't let a larger group come in and have their event there, but some groups are great. The National Guard will come out and have an event at our parks, and they clean up after themselves. They take care of the park. They're very vigilant about it.
Naturally.
Yeah, absolutely. Some other groups come out that'll remain nameless, and there's litter all over the place and things like that. So this would give us the ability for those large groups of people, to vet them a little bit. Also require that if they're going to have 150 people out there, maybe they provide some sanitary facilities in addition to the bathrooms that we have out there to help with that event. And that they have some responsibility after the fact for cleanup and such to assist our park caretakers.
Is there any way that we could charge a fee that they could get back?
A deposit?
Yeah.
That certainly would be something we could entertain, and whether it's $100 or $200 deposit for the event, for cleanup after the fact if we deem necessary. These are not every weekend that these are happening. And the other challenge is too that if you have 200 people show up this park, it really infringes on the rest of the public's ability to use that space.
I was thinking more than a couple $100, something that they would really want to get back.
Sure.
I think you give some of these groups a fee of $100, they'll say, well, we can throw as much garbage as we want because we paid for it.
Right.
So you'd want to have a fee that, and the trouble is you also don't want to not let groups use the park. So you don't want to get it
Make
that,
it a financial hardship.
so it's 6 of one, half dozen the other. Is it a good idea? I guess I'd have to talk with some of the park managers and find out how serious of a situation this is. I've seen them down at Bray Park where they come in there and they actually act like they run the park.
Yes.
And then the campers are people that are camping can't use the facilities like they should because people are coming down there.
Absolutely. And that's some of the concern we had and why we brought this resolution forward. It'd help us at least regulate this a little better.
Well, I would move approval.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion for approval and a second.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Commissioner Brunder.
I certainly will support this with the intention that if we need to modify it a little later, because I do have just a little bit of concern about some of these lake associations that use these parks, and I'm thinking of the Duck Lake Association particularly. I don't want it to be too cumbersome for them to have to get their permit, because they do a great job.
Yeah.
They do a great job for the lake, and they do a great job after they're done with their program. So as long as the process isn't too cumbersome and very, if they're having an event, to let because I don't even know how many people they get. They fill the shelter, they probably get about 120 or 130 there, but they're there 3 hours, they clean up and they're gone.
Yeah.
I'll support it, but with the caveat that if it doesn't work really well and isn't simple enough, we might have to revisit it.
And I think it's just going to be, they're going to have to get correspondence with our department, and we'll have to, if there's provisions we have to set, if there's a maximum number of vehicles, that's always hard to regulate it anyway, but, can you guys arrange for parking somewhere else if you're going to bring in this number of people, and make sure you maybe have a shuttle or something like that, so we're not occupying the entire boat landing area and the entire parking space for the general public's use. It's those types of things that we're concerned about. I don't know that we're going to use it as a reason to tell anybody no, but we need to set some requirements for them along the way.
And we had some discussion at the Parks Board, or Parks Advisory Committee on it, and it made sense because some people that don't want to spend the money to go to an actual event center where they do have all these facilities and they have parking and they have all the facilities that for a very low fund, they can all of a sudden have a wedding, they can have a reception, they can have all these things. And it actually impedes on the people that are there. It affects their ability to enjoy the park. You know what I mean? But I mean, I set one of these up in the Como Park up in Minneapolis. When my son got married, they had a nice reception, but they limit the number of people that can be there, and there's absolutely almost no parking.
Yep.
You have to go about 2 blocks away to a big parking lot and figure out how to get in, shuttle them in, or whatever you want to do. It's
And they
set
have,
up for it.
the appropriate staffing and everything else to really host those events. And the events are also an issue, because we have people just tell us, we're having a wedding at this park, and we're going to set up a tent and do this. And we go, oh, really? Because that really impedes the rest of the general public's on a prime weekend, their ability to use it. And, to give somebody exclusive use of the park is very hard when it's a public facility. Hard to justify.
Yeah. So, I think 80 people is a good number to start with, and then you guys vet it and work it out.
Absolutely.
With them.
Thank you.
What do you guys, anything else?
I agree.
Okay.
Let's try to reach out to all the groups that do things out there for the lakes associations and stuff, so they know when they're ahead of the game.
Yeah. Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries.
All right. And my last action item for the day is the letter that's included, dated March 6, 2018, for advisory board replacement appointments for Robin, I'm going to probably butcher this, Quervost and Gwen Roher. Robin is a professor at Minnesota State University Mankato in the Parks and Recreation Department. We've established contact with them, and we're going to try to do some partnering where their students can do some projects for our Parks Department and provide us with some technical assistance and possibly some free labor in the parks, actually tearing out buckthorn and invasive species management, etc., providing some plans for management of those items. In addition to that, Robin, after our conversations, has agreed to serve on the Park Advisory Board and attempt to routinely attend the meetings. In addition to this, per Commissioner Campbell's recommendation, Ms. Roher is very interested in our park system as well. She's a Lincoln Park neighborhood resident and has also come to our meeting, and both of these ladies were recommended by the Park Advisory Board for addition. We have had a couple of folks step off in the last year and a half, so I think it's good to get some fresh blood in there and some new folks that are willing to serve and commit their time to this worthy process.
And it's also the only 2 women that'll be on the board now too, correct?
Yep.
They'll be the only 2 women on the board.
Yep.
That'll be a real plus.
Yeah. So,
Second.
first, Mr. Stromberg moved and Brunder seconded. Is there any more sharing or any ideas? I'd just like to say one more thing too, a little bit about Mrs. Gwen Rohr. She was raised, she's now living in her house that she was raised in over in Lincoln Park. They left for a while, went to Iowa and things in between, but back in their family home, and she's been an asset to our neighborhood association. And she's also on the, we have a little small committee, well, it's about 10 people, and we work with the city right now. It's called the Lincoln Park Green Spaces and Parks Committee, and she's been working on that committee too, and just helping and deliver things or whatever needs to happen. She's got a personal investment. She said she takes a walking group out to all the county parks in our county. They're pretty familiar with every one of them. In fact, she was telling me that the steps she thought were too dirty, getting all full of needles and leaves going up to the Red Jacket, that big long. So she brings a broom out there and sweeps those off.
Yep.
So she's already invested in is conscientious, about things. So I think she'll she'll make a good addition. So, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries.
All right. Now we'll move on to some information items. Our current construction projects, we have the Rapid End Dam project. The contractor, Kramer North America, was able to complete the project, battling freezing conditions and rising flows. It's been a constant struggle out there, but they did get the remainder of the apron poured. We lost the concrete cores as the apron flooded out, the core samples that were used for the control specimen for strength. So we actually required the contractor go out there and core some holes of the actual slab. So they got about a 2-foot long cores they were able to extract out of the apron, filled that back in with concrete, and we've got those in a controlled environment now and getting strength brakes on them. The initial brakes were very good. We were able to do some blanketing and thawing and heating, and they were actually cured underwater, which is generally speaking good for concrete as long as the temperatures are appropriate. We did install some temperature probes in the concrete mass, and it looked like everything was curing fairly nicely. So with that being said, I believe next week we can break our 28-day breaks to see where the concrete strength is at. And we have to complete the after action report, submit that to the FERC. But Kramer has their cofferdam removed from the downstream apron, and things are back to normal out there. So it's been a really long process. I thank you for your patience as we brought it along. Those projects at the dam are never easy. They never go specifically as planned, but our staff is very diligent, and I think did a great job working with the contractor and the folks from Eagle Creek Renewable Energy.
And the community's been very tolerant and supportive of the project too, so that helps.
So we are in the process now of looking. We had quite a few extra work items that came up just working in winter conditions, and because the scope of the scour hole grew considerably from what we initially believed it was. So we will have quite a bit of contract overages, but we had a lot of buffer in the grant amount. So once we finalize that, we'll make a determination of whether or not we're able to move forward with the left wall repairs.
That's what I was gonna ask you, yeah, when that's gonna start.
We're not doing
happening.
windows.
I didn't say, you guys are making fun of that all the time. It sure would be nice to get that done someday, though.
It would.
If we ever get that budgeted
We
in.
need to return to hydroelectric generation to start making money at the dam. They have really, they haven't been making much, and we then don't receive much back based on it. In fact, at the last look at the taxes, we aren't going to get any money for last year because the tax amount from the previous year was more than what they had produced in 2017 due to having to keep everything at the crest elevation. They had very limited hydroelectric generation.
Wow.
Gotta get fixed.
Indeed. So now they should be rolling and making electricity. County State Highway 5, the 3 bridges north of Mankato, Icon Constructors had poured all 3 decks. They're completed their curing period. They're actually back out there working now, installing the railings, getting those temporarily reopened to traffic. Once conditions are fit this spring, they'll move back in. They'll close down those 3 bridges for the final grading, approved paving, turf establishment, etc., to get the project completed. But we wanted to reopen those in the interim for the next month and change until the weather's a little bit better suited to complete the grading. And the grading is really just widening at the opening of the bridges and maybe some minor profile adjustments. So that project moved along fairly well. It was really good to be able to tackle those in the middle of winter, the way we were able to do it. Planning projects update, County State Highway 1 from Casad 9 to Mankato. The plans are complete with minor revisions to the reinforced soil slope wall at the Indian Creek Access Township Road that goes down to like the Koborowski Tree Farm. There's about 6 residences down there. We made some adjustments as we were working with the landowners so that they'd have a little bit better approach, some additional curvature, so they'd be able to hit it at a little bit higher rate of speed due to the steepness of the slope and get the equipment in and out. So just typical adjustments that we make as we work with our landowners to facilitate their concerns and try to implement as much as possible into the project plans. We're still working on right-of-way acquisition. We've got a handful of landowners we believe we're fairly close on. So we're waiting on that. We're waiting on the Army Corps of Engineers permit. I'm actually meeting with the liaison from the Corps tomorrow to look at the project. He's actually coming down, so we'll drive the project and show him our concerns. May be able to break it out into phases because they do have a cultural resources concern for some of the surcharge area, and they have not given us a definitive area where they're concerned about, but the proximity is more or less closer to the Red Jacket Trestle and the Red Jacket Valley Park. So some of that is really outside of the scope of our work, and we don't know where they're going to want cultural resource investigation this spring, so they'll have to go and do some digging.
There's not much going on right there, is there, as far as...
There's the surcharge through the chute and then through the bottom land where we make the alignment adjustment on the De Santiago property.
On the other side of 90.
Yes.
Yep.
And
I
that
see.
surcharge work is included in this contract, so it all got pulled into the
I
core.
see.
But they may permit for the north segment and then make us do cultural resource review for the south.
I see.
And then it becomes a risk management of getting the contract out, knowing we've got a delay on this piece if we can get the earthwork and things to balance out. So we're still juggling a few things, as federal permits are always very cumbersome, and this project has kept us on our toes and provided an abundance of challenges. County State Highway 14 plans are developing. We're beginning the right-of-way platting, and we'll be beginning the right-of-way acquisition work fairly soon. That's for the segment from Minnesota Highway 30 to the north. Pleasant Mound Township Road 91 Bridge 07508 replacement funding was approved. The plans were approved by MnDOT, so we'll be bidding that this spring, and I'll be bringing forward a recommendation, hopefully with good bids again, to replace the township bridge. We'll probably provide a fairly open construction window as we look at our staffing abilities and when we can cover these projects. Really, right now, we're thinking a lot of this, if we can get it out and get it done early, would be better than late. As County Road 1 breaks loose, we'll have a lot of work out there. And then the Johnson, the Homeland Security Emergency Management Hazard Mitigation Project, I blanked on it earlier when you said you'd like to see the property, but we are officially the poster child for flood mitigation.
That's all I wanted to ask
and
if it was used for anything, because that's where it could be used.
that was a
Excuse me.
flyer that Homeland Security Emergency Management had sent out, and they had sent us copies because our project made the cover of it, and was featured in an article was featured in there about how to use these funds for these types of projects. So
Dubious,
Yeah.
I don't know that that's something we want to be
Yeah.
the poster child for.
I don't know whether that's good or bad.
Here we are. So I thought you'd find that interesting.
No, it is, it really is. I think it's a good reminder, as I said before, that, these rivers tend to move quite a bit over time. And
Absolutely.
when people are asking for, wanting to build near a bluff, they gotta really think about this.
So our staff has done such a good job with these that they've just, they actually refer people to us for the application process and for the project process,
Well,
which is, again, a blessing and a curse. And last item that I have is the St. Clair shop. We're working with ISG on plan development. So we're reviewing their plans for that, and once we get those approved, we'll be drafting contract documents, putting that out to bid for the shop refurbishing this summer, which was a budgeted item that we had.
Right.
So we'll be bringing bids forward to you at some point over the next couple of months for consideration.
I have a question about that one.
Yep.
Does anybody ever look at it and say, oh, this is gonna cost X number of dollars, we'd be much farther ahead if we just got rid of the shop and put up a brand new one? Brand new.
We certainly will be looking at that. In fact, I think for the number of employees and equipment that we're housing at St. Clair and Lake Crystal, it probably pays to continue on the track of refurbishing the shops, because generally it's about a third to a half of the cost of a new structure.
Okay.
Good Thunder might be one when we get to that we should consider perhaps a new, larger building, because we are housing an additional employee out of there. We're having to have some of the trucks parked out in cold storage, which is problematic at times. So
Yeah.
Good Thunder's one I certainly think we should look at, as well as someday talking about our Mankato shop and some of the economics that go along with that.
Right. No, I know all of our shops are kind of old.
Absolutely. So these projects that we've done in Mapleton and Vernon Center are great. The employees are appreciative, and it helps to refurbish that facility and get some much needed life out of it. We are looking at
Oh, Bob, that's down to Bob.
building a lean-to onto the outside of the St. Clair shop for the storage room, the employee office, and as well as the bathroom, so that we could open up some space inside of the shop.
Is it
Or the
similar to an
equipment to be
addition
parked.
then, you're saying? It's like an addition?
Yeah, it'd be about a 12 to 15 foot bump out on the west side of the building. So we're pricing that out as an ad alternate to consider, to create more space within the shop itself.
Makes sense.
And the estimates on that are about where are you at?
Right now, the last couple of projects ran about 250,000.
Yeah, so it's quite a bit.
Thereabouts. So
They're just starting that project then, right?
their ISG is doing the design and cost estimation right now.
And you'll give us an update on that then, won't you?
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay, thank
And I'll
you.
bring that bids forward on that as well as we get them. So with that, I guess I'd answer if there's any other questions that you might have on anything, or?
Anybody else?
Nope.
Good.
All right.
Yeah, thanks so much.
thank you for your time.
For everything
Have a
you're
great day.
doing. Thank your staff too.
Can you stick around just a minute, Ryan, or if we're
Yeah.
gonna take a break in a bit?
Yeah.
I wanna talk to you, so.
When should we take a break?
We can take a break now, couldn't we, Chair?
Could do that now.
Right now?
10 o'clock?
Okay.
10 o'clock?
Let's just take a 10-minute break then. Well, before we get totally started here, everybody's back. I just wanted to read a letter that came the end of February that I forgot about. I just wanted to read it. It's very nice. It's from the Department of Human Services, our commissioner, and her name is Emily Piper. And it says, Mr. Campbell, Chair of Blue Earth County Commissioners, regarding calendar year 2017 financial reporting. Dear Commissioner, it's my pleasure to commend you and your staff for perfect performance in meeting the Department of Human Services financial reporting requirements for calendar year 2017. All key quarterly fiscal reports for the programs your county participates in were submitted to our Financial Operations Division on or before the report deadlines and in perfect order. This effort requires submission of 32 major reports covering the 4 calendar quarters of 2017. I know this accomplishment requires planning and efficient operation and teamwork within your county Human Services Department. The result is timely revenue for your county and compliance with federal reporting for us at the state. Please congratulate your management and your staff on this superb effort. Sincerely, Emily Piper, Commissioner of DHS. And I thought that was very nice. CC'd to Phil Clausen, so I know he got it too. But I just forgot. This is a nice thing to. It's a good thing, and thank the staff over there. I'm sure the board. Yeah.
Well, Mr. Chair, thank you for that. I can tell you that that letter has been received for probably 29 years now.
Nice.
The staff there have done a great job. I remember being in that role and getting that letter for the first time, and
Is that right?
I've seen it come every year since. So
Wow.
I appreciate the folks that have continued that tradition of completing those reports, which have obviously fed into our fiscal health here.
Nice.
Very nice. So it's still meaningful, even though we get it every year, right?
Oh, it is.
I mean, it's still meaningful. Because
I
sometimes
can-
you get used to that.
I can tell you, when I was in the Human Service Department, I would say to the fiscal officer there, one thing you have to do is get that letter every year.
Oh, is that right?
That was part of their goal. You know, and they've done it. And that's a testament to the hard work that those folks have done.
Well, thank you very much, and maybe we should even have a letter from the board thanking staff over there. It'd be nice, I think. So next on our agenda today, we've got our county attorney, Mr. Pat McDermott. He's going to give us a county update.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, thank you.
Morning, Pat.
Good morning.
Good morning, Pat.
I'd like to think that this time of year is a little bit of a lull, but, and you'll kind of see that in the numbers, but it really hasn't been. We're operating right now a couple of attorneys short. I'm not going to, read the numbers back to you or whatnot. The numbers are what they are. If you have any specific questions, I'm more than happy to answer them. I will provide you with a couple of updates. We are in the process right now of, we will be interviewing later this week for 2 positions in the misdemeanor prosecutor position, and hopefully we can make a decision in the relatively near future on that. Another update from the standpoint of as we move forward and push towards the idea of having a child advocacy center, actually a family and child advocacy center here in this region. Under the grant, we hired a part-time advocate, and I feel very fortunate that we were able to find somebody. It's difficult in this market, and I think that you've seen this. I know we see it with the businesses. It's difficult to find good part-time help in some of these areas, but we were fortunate enough to come across an individual that was a retired social worker of 33 years, April Johnson, and she will be working with us in that capacity under the grant as we move forward, and she's agreed to stay on for at least a year, if not longer. She brings a wealth of experience in the areas and whatnot, was a school social worker for 28 of those years, I believe, so it's a good addition to that as we continue to move forward. And again, I don't know if you have any specific questions, concerns, or comments or anything. I would be more than happy to address any of them.
Just, I guess I have one on the traffic. Last year, it looks like it was quite a bit higher, like 200 and some for the adult criminal felony case filings on traffic in the green on the second page, and last year it was quite a bit, I mean, it was much higher than this year. It's only at, are we getting more of
Well,
those?
and that's just compared to this year, it's just the pace as we move forward. And from 2015 or 2016, 2017, there was a little bit of a spike, but the traffic, you know, in 2014, we don't get quite a number of felony level traffic offenses. And so actually that's good, because you'll see in 2014 we had 21, and then it dropped down to 19, and then in 2016 it was 11, and then only last year was only 8, and those are typically felony DWIs. So we've been fortunate in that area. There's, you know, unless it's some type of homicide or injury, then we don't typically have any felony traffic numbers. So if those numbers are down, that's good. But overall, comparatively with the region, you know, our numbers still, the information that I put together that I shared with all of you last year, that's been updated, and I talked to you a little bit about that before. So it's not a bad thing that number.
So it doesn't take very many to change that graph?
No.
Because you don't have a lot of money?
Right, we don't have a lot there, so.
All right, sure.
Okay, anything else, gentlemen?
Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank
you,
you
Pat.
for all your work.
Thank you, Pat.
Thanks, Pat. And then I guess on our agenda here, we've got our administrative services. Bob, you want to lead us
Thank you, Mr.
through?
Chair and Commissioners. First item is the county board minutes for February 20th.
I'll move the minutes.
Second.
Got a motion for approval and a second. Are there any corrections or additions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries.
Next would be the bills for the 3 weeks that are indicated.
I'll move the bills.
Second?
We've got a motion for approval and a second. Does anybody have any questions on the numbers?
I didn't see anything
have
this
anything.
time.
None?
I didn't see any.
I'm depending on you guys because I didn't really have time to go through the bills this time.
Well,
I glanced at them, but I didn't.
took my time, went through them, and didn't see anything that really stuck out.
No, I didn't
Not
see
this time
anything.
as much as.
So
All 3 weeks of them.
we're not doing any stump the administrator type things this morning.
Nah, we'll let them go today.
We gotta get the music, the tape of the music.
Yeah. Well, I could ask one question. We've got a Kleinschmidt Associates. It's a public works consulting services, and it's such a small amount. It surprises me for public works. I'm just wondering what that was in the first week. It seems like the consulting services are usually in the 50,000 range.
Those were some professional services provided related to the Rapidan Dam. So it's probably a cleanup of some residual bills there.
Oh, okay, okay. Anything else? Anybody else? All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries on the bills.
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, item number 8 in your packet is the Human Resources Department agenda. Just have informational items for you this morning. The first 5 items listed there are all items where we have filled positions. So we've filled a number of custody officers positions. We've also filled a license center specialist position and filled the deputy patrol officer position. A little further down on the page then you'll see that we've increased hours, assistant county attorney to full-time, as well as increasing a part-time custody officer to full-time. And as a result of that item, we've initiated recruitment to fill a part-time custody officer position. We did have one resignation of a custody officer and also had a resignation of an assistant county attorney, and so we've initiated recruitment to fill both of those positions. I'd be happy to answer any questions that the board might have on any of those items.
Looks
All right, hearing none. Item number 9 in your packet is a resolution being brought forward as a result of the discussion that occurred at the February 27th work session. You'll recall that the director of the Traverse des Sioux Library System came before the board at that time and talked about the funding issues that have impacted the regional library systems. And so as a part of that presentation, the board was asked to consider passing a resolution in support of some legislation that would provide additional funding to the regional library systems, which ultimately support our local library. And so we're bringing this resolution forward for consideration.
I move to approve.
Second.
We've got a motion for approval from Vance, and I believe a second from Will. Is there some discussion or comments on this resolution?
It's important to support this, support our regional libraries.
Yeah, we're part of the system, right? We want to support what they're working on, and we provide support too. So, all right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries for support of that platform resolution.
Thank you. We will forward this to our legislative members just to make sure that they're aware of the board support.
Okay.
We'll be sending that. Could you send a copy of that to TDS also?
Sure. Mr. Chair and Commissioners, item number 10 in your packet then is the financial status report for the end of February. You'll see that our total revenues sit at 9.2 million against expenses of 13.6. Again, this is common as we wait for the first half property tax revenues to arrive. Overall, our expenses, though still in total, are at 12%, and at this point in the year we should be closer to 16%, so those are running a little below our budget, which is good at this point in the year. Still very early in the year, obviously, and so the numbers will be changing over the coming months, especially in that contract and fees line where our road projects will get going later this spring and early summer, and that changes the picture, obviously. The enterprise fund, again, is shown at the bottom of that first page with total revenues at $250,000 and expenditures at $291,000. Again, there we have a number of land improvements as we're creating additional cells, so it's a future kind of capital investment there that's causing that deficit situation.
And that was highlighted in the newspaper too. Did you see that? There was an article on that.
That was a good story.
Yep.
The second page shows our investment and cash balances. You'll see that our total county funds is sitting at just under 105 million, up a little bit from the year before. But again, with some of the major projects we have scheduled this year, we're likely to see that change as our building project progresses later this year. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that the board has on the financial status report.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Bob, why don't we, the agency funds, can you just explain to me a little bit? They're starting to climb up, and so what exactly is in that account again?
You know, the
Refresh my
big
memory.
item there, comparing against the prior year, are the prepaid property taxes as a
okay.
result of
from
the
this.
federal tax law changes. We have roughly $3 million
right.
additional that came in.
That would explain it.
That's something. Yeah.
I thought that number looked odd, that
Yeah,
it jumped up so fast.
It's a good catch. It is
All right.
different than a lot of other years because of that prepayment.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on our financial health? All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Now we go on to the commissioners' reports and on our committees and boards that we're involved with. And who could we start with? We start with Mark?
Oh my goodness. Never start. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I never start. Let's see, we had 3 weeks. I think I got here February 24th is the Saturday after our last board meeting, and we had the Pedal Past Poverty event. We had over 31 teams and over 75,000 raised. Actually, I think it's higher now, maybe.
Wow.
The Sisters of Notre Dame had like 7 teams. They raised over 23,000.
Wow.
So some of us weren't quite in that category team-wise. But of the individual teams outside of those, yours truly, the People's Peddlers, the pedal, our team were third.
Wow.
So thank you for all your generosity, because we're actually
Good job.
Is that the name now, People's Peddlers?
actually it's People's Peeps, but
I like
we
the
had one of the
peddlers part a little
gals. They have a little T-shirt company, and they put pedaling past poverty on the back, and so it was People Peddlers, but
I
no,
like
it's still
that.
Peeps
I
because it's
like
yellow.
that.
Yep.
There you go.
So then, let's see, we had the work session on the 27th, and then the March 1st, the legislative conference, and then of course the day before, but then at 1st and 2nd. Maple on that Thursday night coming back from the Ledge Conference, which I thought went quite well, actually, even with the new format for that, we view with our legislators.
How'd that go? Because I couldn't be there. I was gone.
It went all right. It's kind of nice, the bigger groups with other counties, to work that out a little more, but I thought it, you certainly had more legislators, or more commissioners up there for that.
Okay.
Maple meeting that night, and then actually in between all that, but I went after our Maple meeting because that wasn't too long, was the United Way Men's Night, and they had the guy from the radio station, anyway, Common Man. Common Man.
Is that what they call it?
Common Man. I actually didn't. I caught about 1 minute of his talk as I got there after a Maple. So yeah, the Common Man. If you, I guess, have him on the radio station, you'll catch him, the KFan. Then we just had at least I had several of us went to the GMG, the annual meeting, the following Thursday, and then mayors and clerks that night in Eagle Lake. And then Gaburba I had Friday morning, and that was well attended. And in fact, at the Gaburba we had a special meeting on program on the drainage laws and new draining methods. And of course, we were represented well by the panel. It had our own. Craig Ostinson was on the panel, and then Pat, can't read, Duncanson, can't even read.
Oh, sure.
Pat Duncanson was there because he talked about County 56,
Yeah.
but looking at new methods.
Sure.
And then, of course, Chuck Brandel was there too, so on the panel, and then they had the gentleman from Bowser, but anyway, they got into different newer methods and ways to store the water, and it was
That sounds
interesting.
good.
So that concludes my report.
And just for our listening audience, Gaburba, you hear all these acronyms were involved with things, right? And unless you're involved, you don't really know what it means. It's the Greater Blue Earth Basin Alliance, is that?
Okay, yeah.
Greater Blue Earth River Basin Alliance, yeah.
That's why we keep it to Gaburba.
Say it fast. Will?
Yeah. First, the work session on the 27th was had a good session, got a lot of things done. Of course, we enacted the resolution for TDS today. After that, Vance and I met with Bob, had a good meeting regarding the community farm. And then, of course, on the February 28th and March 1st, we had the AMC conference up in St. Paul. It's the first day we, of course, had the visits to the legislative folks, and I too thought they went relatively well, except the bigger groups didn't go as well as the smaller groups. But Not bad for first year. Then on the first, we had our public safety committee meeting, and we met in conjunction with the human services folks, and had a good panel. I should note that we had to elect a vice chairman of that committee because our own Washington County Commissioner Carla Bigham was elected to the new Senate seat, so she was the chair of that committee, and so Jack Swanson, vice chair, moved into her position, and Jeff Jelinski was elected as vice chair. So we got good leadership moving forward.
Jeff will do well.
Yeah, he'll do a good job. I had to study for a day to figure out how to pronounce his last name, but other than that, it worked out well.
Spelling it's even harder.
Yeah. So, and then on the 7th, I had a conference call for the PACE committee. We approved a PACE loan for a laundromat down in Nobles County. And then on the 8th, I attended the SWCD, and we had a speaker from the Rural Minnesota Energy Board, Robin Weiss, who is our PACE coordinator, and she spoke to the folks at SWCD about the PACE program, and was well received. And then later that evening we had the mayors and clerks, and she also presented at that meeting, and again was well received and presented some good information on that. And then yesterday we had the Brown County Evaluation Center Board of Directors meeting. We went over our audit. The audit was a good, clean audit as usual. We remain in fair to good financial status. I am concerned their net loss was $100,000 last year, basically because the numbers aren't there. And I look at Blue Earth County's numbers, and they're down a little, but they're not down anything compared to some of the other counties. So something that we as the board of directors will continue to work through. And like I said, they have a good fund balance yet, so it's not an emergency thing, but it is something we want to look after. That completes my report.
Well, thank you for your report. We'll right down the line here to
All right.
Mr. Brunder.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. After our 20th meeting, Jesse, myself, and several other county staff were at the customer service training with Kit. Can't recall his last name, but I thought it was relatively interesting. I think we're doing a lot of that stuff here in Blue Earth County already, so I didn't learn anything that was earth-shattering to me anyways. But it was good to hear and get your memory refreshed that customer service is always very important, no matter what line of work you're in. Then we had our open house for the government center project for the neighborhood, and most of us at least popped in there at one point or another. I thought that went fairly well. We had a good turnout, some good discussion. Had our South Central Workforce meeting, and those were both, that one and the MVAC meeting that I'll mention next, were both canceled from the snowstorm to last month. Both those organizations, everything's just kind of moving along. Nothing really new to report. They're both doing very well. Had our work session, which was mentioned, very busy work session, got a lot of stuff done. The AMC, I also agree, I thought it went pretty well teaming up with the other communities, except for when we got in the big group. And we just, I think if we could have kind of got that one just a little bit more on page, it would have been better. But yeah, we all kind of started talking about our own issues with Senator Rosen, so it kind of got lost, wheels came off it there a little bit, but the other ones did go very well. And then I also went into my committee meeting for Health and Human Services and got reports from them. Then after we got back from that, I had County Ditch 35 ditch meeting over in Mapleton. It's a big project. There's a ditch over there that's been just one maintenance issue after another, and as you start meeting with these people and the landowners, this was like our third meeting, and it went from a couple $100,000 repair to right now we're talking over $1 million improvement. Because of the ditch, and it's going to be we're going to be closing in an open ditch part if this moves forward.
Oh, wow.
It's an open ditch right next to a township road. It has huge erosion problems on the township road side and on the landowner side. So someone said why don't we put a tile in there and bury it, you know, and then have a swale on the top. We won't have to worry about erosion anymore. And so that was after the last meeting, so we went back and started putting some numbers together, and Chuck told them at that point it's going to be $1 million, and it came in just a little over $1 million. So, and they're still interested in doing it. So we're going to be moving forward with that,
incredible.
talking about it, and just forward-thinking people, though. You know, we keep losing the land, erosion. We spent $350,000 on it the last 10 years. You know, it doesn't take long to pay for this. So it's really encouraging to see that and try to build some consensus around that. The Greater Mankato Growth Luncheon was mentioned. It was nice to be there to see the 4 people get honored for their volunteerism for the last year. I think all of us knew all 4 of them, so that was good to see. Then the mayor's meeting was mentioned already, and Robin did a great job talking about the program they got. The second time I've heard that, but I think that has some definite use in the Blue Earth County area. And then Warm Your Hearts last Saturday night, which most of us were there and attended that. It was a great turnout. They had some entertainment. I didn't watch the entertainment, but a lot of people stuck around for it, and we were cleaned up and out of there by about 11:15 that night. So that went really well. And yesterday we had JD9, another several $100,000 project over right by Eagle Lake. Had the pre-construction meeting yesterday. That's something new we're starting. We have done them in the past, but it's a chance. We invite all the landowners. So we bring all the landowners into the meeting, and they get to visit with the engineering staff from ISG. They get to talk with our staff, Ryan and Craig, and then we also bring in the contractors, obviously. And then they just kind of have some discussion about it. The meeting was only about 45 minutes, and I asked several times if there's any other questions, and nobody had any questions. And I said, well, if you have any questions afterwards, you certainly can come up and talk to one of the staff. And every single one of the staff was busy. So they each have their own different concerns, and that's fine, because that's why we have that meeting, and it works really well to answer those questions one-on-one instead of a group anyway. So, but it's really good to see the people come, and they were there for a while after I left, and getting a lot of the issues dealt with before we started. JD9 project, 9 and 34. So. There's 2 projects over there, and they did actually got 2 different contractors, so that makes it a little bit more interesting. But these 2 contractors have worked together before, and it's not going to be an issue. So that brings me up to today, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner. Mr. Stuenberg.
All right. Well, I've been to 1 or 2 meetings since the last board meeting.
I know. Let's just take a quick break, and then we'll... No, I'm teasing. Go ahead. Sorry.
All right. Well, we had our last board meeting on February 20th. On February 21st, I had a executive board meeting for the Transportation Alliance, and up in St. Paul, and I came back and went to 2 different open houses, one for the Minnesota Highway Showcase at Mindi, and then the other one for our Government Center open house that most of us showed up at. And that was a nice showing. It shows people how we're going to proceed with the Government Center. And it's also nice to see that the parking ramp is coming down so nice.
It is.
The next day, February 22nd and the 23rd, I had AMC Futures, and the talk was on millennials in the workplace. And I want to thank Amy Holst because I had to do some homework on this and talk to a millennial. Well, the only millennial that I knew that could talk was Amy, and she gave me some really good insight on what the thought process of a lot of the millennials are. And we had a really good talk up at Futures about millennials and the future of they're our future. They're the ones that are going to take over for. So and it's not something that we have to be worried about. On February 27th, I had Airport Commission, and we had our work session, and then we had our community farm meeting with Bob and Will. And then I helped open up the Minnesota Transportation Conference at the Verizon Center. I'm president of the Transportation Alliance, and I opened that up, and then introduced the robotics team from Mankato East and Mankato West. And for 4 years in a row, this robotics team has won the state competition. So they have quite the coaches, quite the teachers that help and amazing students. And it's kind of fun to watch them do. You know, they showed a competition how they did that. really interesting to see. February 28th, we had our AMC Legislative Conference. We had our opening session with Roger Reinhardt, who we spent four and a half hours with here and talked about communication with legislators. And then we had our county day at the Capitol. That's been talked about. I thought it was actually pretty positive that we were all wearing the buttons. People understood how much county government means to the state of Minnesota. If anything, the legislators and the senators need to understand that, and including some of our newest legislators here in Blue Earth County. Let's see, this second day, I had my Transportation Policy Committee, and we had a talk on rural broadband. We had a talk with MnDOT mowing and haying, MnDOT corridors of commerce, and legislative bonding bill priorities. And then we had a long discussion on the constitutional amendment for auto parts taxes, and we're working on that. And then we had our general session with Attorney General Lori Swanson. March 3rd, I flew out to Washington, D.C. for the NACO Legislative Conference. This was the day after I should have flown out, but because of weather that was in D.C., I was not able to fly out on Friday, so I had to get there on Saturday. I actually missed all my policy committee meetings, which I really missed, but on Sunday then we had our NACO Legislative Conference. We had a RAC meeting and talks on veterans, military services, and opioids. Went to a NACO Arts and Culture Commission meeting and an Immigration Reform Task Force meeting, which was interesting because we had commissioners arguing both sides. And you have some pretty, people with some very strong feelings on both sides of this, and as we're sitting back and just kind of going, okay, you're hearing people from North Carolina, and then you hear people from other parts of the country who have very strong feelings on this. March 5th, on the Legislative Conference, we had our Central Region Caucus meeting. We had a general session with David Shulkin, who is the Secretary of Veterans Affairs, with Elaine Chao, who is Secretary of Transportation, and with Ryan Zink, who is Secretary of the Interior. I then went to a meeting on impacts of adverse childhood experiences, ACEs, and childhood poverty. I attended a luncheon, and they had the comedy group Capital Steps, and anybody that's been there and listened.
Always entertaining.
And they have no problem slamming both the Republicans and the Democrats. So it's nice to see. They're nonpartisan. They slam them all. Then we had a session on social media in the government and what form of communication works best with state and federal legislators. How can you get your message across? And then we had our Minnesota Delegation Caucus, and that evening we had our Luck Rack reception, which is at the Folgers Shakespeare Library, which is an absolutely beautiful building. Yeah. I was very impressed with it this year. Sometimes we've had that meeting and you're crammed in and stuff. This was almost perfect, March 6th, at the conference, we had a reception for Senator Smith, so we got to meet our newest senator from the state of Minnesota. Then we met with Senator Klobuchar, and actually Commissioner Gamble and myself and Drew's wife were able to walk with her down the hall and go with the tram right into the Capitol and discuss our county issues during that time period. Very open. Senator Klobuchar has always been positive for counties, and but she really treated myself and Commissioner Campbell and his wife very well, I thought. Then we had a meeting with Congressman Walz's staff. The so-called had another snowstorm here in Minnesota, and he couldn't get to DC. That evening, I flew back to Minnesota because on March 7th, I had Transportation Day at the Capitol here in Minnesota. And Ryan Tilges and I met with Representatives Constein and Munson, and also with State Senators Rosen and Frentz, and discussed county issues and state issues with them. March 8th, Highway 169 Corridor Coalition Executive Board meeting and board meeting. We had Scott Pedersen from MnDOT, who spoke on the Highway 35W Minnesota River Bridge construction. That's going to go on between August of this year to November of 2021. So anyone going up and going across 35W starting this fall is going to notice there's a lot of traffic issues going up, going there. And then we had the engineer from the city of Savage who spoke on the Truck Highway 13 and Dakota Avenue project, which is, as you're going through Savage, you always notice there's lots and lots of semis that are there. They're trying to get those semis off the road into a different road or a parking area, so there isn't so much congestion with all the semis. But it's a probably about a $25–30 million project, and I believe they already got 14 million, but they're looking for more money. Then we had Paul Morris from SRF Consulting, who spoke with us on the Highway 169 Mobility Study, which is transit ways, MinPass, and the Spot Mobility Implementation Plan. Really talked about transit ways of how we get transit things like our own True Transit, along with a bus that's going between Mankato and the Twin Cities. So very interesting. March 9th, I had my TDS Executive Board meeting, and then after that I met with Natasha Frost from Friesens and Anna Good, who is our community farm manager. Had an amazing meeting. Natasha Frost, who wants to really sit down and really promote the community farm. We're talking about getting hold of Boy Scouts and seeing if somebody wants to do an Eagles badge for that, getting hold of 4-H and see if somebody wants to do a 4-H project that they can bring to the county and state fair on something like this. A lot of positive things that we're looking at, and I was excited about that. Of course, March 10th we had Warm Your Heart, and I got to sit next to some of these amazing commissioners from Blue Earth County.
Let me get my feet up here, Vance, before you continue.
And then this morning we had our new employee group orientation, which I think all of us did very well, and we're pretty blessed to have the employees that we have here in Blue Earth County.
That's true.
Thank you. Was that long enough, or do you want me to go on?
No,
You'll probably go
I'll
on just as long, but that's okay.
I'll try that.
That was a good report.
No, it was a good report though, Vance. I mean, I hope you get some rest in too.
I did well. I'm doing really good, but thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Okay, well, I guess it's my turn as the chair here. I'll try not to double up too much on some of the things you said, because we spent some time together out there in Washington D.C. for the NACO thing, But so our board meeting, of course, was 3 weeks ago, basically February 20th. On Wednesday the 21st, I met with some community members about some issues and hopefully got those resolved. Met with one of our city police officers just to talk about some issues. NACO RAC call in on that day also, and then after that I attended along with some of you the county neighborhood info session over at our government center to talk about the big project that we have over there, and that was a good meeting. Some people had some good questions. And then Thursday the 22nd, I'm currently serving as the chair for Region 9 TAC, which is the Transportation Advisory Committee. And Region 9 is contracted with through MnDOT to review projects and things. The only one we had to review as far as an official rating of the project was one that's happening over in New Ulm. So they've got a street that's going to be developed, which will help them over there. And we all thought it was a fairly good project, I know. But we'll see. We're just one little teeny piece of the pie that gives it feedback about that project. And it's on the west end of town there, kind of in more of an industrial area. And then, let's see here, Greater Mankato Diversity Luncheon was on the 22nd also. Josh and I sat together there at the Diversity Council Luncheon, and that's always a good reminder of what's going on in our community, the stats and the things that are going on, the work, the efforts that are going on through our Diversity Council to educate our community. It helps us to be a welcoming and understanding community. And then I had to leave a little bit early to catch up with, let's see here, I had a meeting with Kelly Hayter, excuse me, I didn't spell it very well, our public health supervisor, to talk about some issues. It was a real good meeting up there at the department. County Parks Advisory Board meeting that night also, so it was kind of a busy day. There were some students that were visiting, and one of our new members that was interested, Gwen, was there, and we had a really good Parks Advisory Committee Board meeting. And then February the 23rd, SHAC, another acronym, State Community Health Services Advisory Committee through Minnesota Department of Health. And the last Commissioner of Health resigned at the end of 2017, so for this year we've got Jan Malcolm, and I really enjoyed meeting her. She's a very dynamic, very knowledgeable person, and so she was at the meeting sharing her experiences and her views on things. We had both our executive board meeting, which I run. I'm the chair of that, and I'm the chair of SHAC, so it's a little bit nerve-wracking for me to be in such a large setting, running a large meeting with a lot of people. There was a few less because of some weather issues, but a lot of people made a good effort and were there. And so we went over our work plan coming up for this year. We talked about some of our work group efforts that are going on, and reviewed some of the information, and it was very good. It's about I'd say altogether it's a 5-6 hour, I mean, it's a long day.
Oh, wow.
So with driving and everything, it's about a 9-hour day for me.
It's a day.
Yeah.
It's there.
You know, Mark,
Yeah.
you've done it. And I also, just for the fun of it, my wife and I went to ragtime at Minnesota State University up here, the Ted Paul Theater. I just mentioning that because it's rich to have those arts so close here in our community, to have them here, right here. Very good acting and singing. It was wonderful. Went there with my wife, Dawn. Monday the 26th, 2 meetings. Let's see here. Oh yeah, those are more community meetings, excuse me, with people in the community. 27th, we had our work session, and I thought that was a great work session. I really enjoyed the gentleman, what's his name, that came to talk about how boards get along and things like that.
Johnson.
What was his name? Remember?
Roger?
The consultant
I said his name here.
at the work session.
Are you talking about Roger Reinert?
Yes.
Oh, you're talking about Roger Henry.
From January?
Yeah.
January.
Oh, that was back in January, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, it was Art
Talk
Johnson.
about the,
Art.
Yeah.
Oh, that was the guy.
company that.
The company that wants to do some consulting on
Yes,
improving,
that was Art.
they do an evaluation of your county, I'm sorry.
That was Art,
Yeah,
sure.
I just didn't say that very well, but it sounds, after being at NACO, I'll just say it sounds like something that would be very beneficial if we didn't have to spend too much on it. But it would help, help get the mission and our vision and things like that across the board, I think, in our county. And I had to go meet then with the state auditor for her entry to the work that they do every year here in our county to audit the county business, and that was Amy Thomas, and she's been here for quite some time in the Mankato office. I believe she runs the Mankato office now. So, and then took off for NACO. I'll try to sum that up quickly. I left a little bit early, so that's why I didn't make it to our AMC, Association of Minnesota Counties Legislative. It's the first year they've ever had it that close to our NACO legislative, and I always go a little early to get out there to the East Coast, and I got caught in that windstorm out there, and I wasn't sure how I was going to make it down flew into Baltimore. I wasn't sure I was going to get down to DC, so all the trains were shut down, the public transit was shut down, and even the highways were some of them were impassable because they had power lines and trees and things down. A lot of wind, high wind. But I'm a member of the Health Policy Steering Committee. We met Saturday all morning, and our NACO president, Royce Brooks, has got an initiative he started, which is serving the underserved and focusing on childhood health, how important it is to have early screening. So we talked a lot about public health. I even saw Dr. Ron Manderscheid, who was just here in Mankato, I think the week earlier. He remembered my name and where I was from and everything. I couldn't believe it. Yeah, what a guy. He spoke quite a bit about issues relating to behavioral health and the opioid epidemic. We hear more and more about the opioid epidemic that's happening across our nation. And what they've shown is they've got a map, and it shows 2 hotspots where it started from about 6 or 7 years ago. And now those hotspots have grown to all over the country. And the fear is, there's some fear involved here because it's growing in places they didn't expect. And so I'm saying that here because I certainly hope it doesn't start in Blue Earth County, and that we need to be forward thinking on how to handle this if it does begin in our community, because some of these communities lose as much as 600 people in 1 year just to opioid. And we really got to think about it. Luckily, we're only dealing with meth right here. I shouldn't say only, but meth and heroin and things like that we've got here in southern Minnesota. But the opioid epidemic is growing throughout the nation. And so there was a lot of people talking about those issues. Also attended this lunch roundtable combating multi-generational poverty in our country. There's 15 million children that are living below the poverty line in the United States. And there's something happening that we're not really tracking very well, I think. And public health sometimes, I believe, is underfunded and does not receive the accolades and the support that it needs. So if any of you are involved with talking with our representatives, talking with your own committees, public health is one of the things that helps combat some of these issues that affect our children that are in poverty. Early screenings are one of the things that really helps. They have home visitors, like this young gal we talked to today before we came to the meeting, checking in on homes that are low income to help them with the issues. One of the things they talked about is a 2-generational approach. Instead of just taking that one person and looking at it, or in that one family, is to actually look at it as it's generational. And what can we do to provide support? What kind of mechanisms can we do? What kind of tools can we give that family in their toolbox so that they have better chances for employment, and education and those kinds of things, so we can actually stop this cycle that's growing throughout the entire country. So I don't want to talk about that all day, but I just want to tell you that a lot of the conference, the parts that I attended, were all about this issues of opioids, childhood poverty, ACEs that you mentioned, Commissioner, the ACEs, which is the adverse child experiences and trauma that children experience at an early age, which causes them to end up getting involved with the legal system because it limits their ability for opportunities for good education, for all these kinds of things. They have a lot of issues. So, okay. Health Policy Steering Committee, business meetings, of course. I don't want to talk too much about that, but there's always somebody presenting there that's on very similar issues, passing certain things that we had to pass. 10 a.m. Rural Action Caucus meeting on Sunday. There was a senior policy advisor there from the USDA on rural development. Also talked about opioids again there, and diseases of despair. Anybody here ever hear that term ever? Diseases of despair. And it's what we see around us sometimes, even some of our family members. People who become addicts or have drinking problems. It's a disease of despair. There's something happening in their life sometimes that drives them to these issues. feelings of failure, feeling alone, loneliness is also part of this whole thing. And so still looking at how can we support families and support these issues that cause addictions and liver disease and mental illness, suicide. All these things are diseases of despair that happen around us. And so we as counties, and how are we set up properly to respond to these issues in our counties and to help them? Public health is again a big issue there. And we talked about emergency management and the importance of keeping our elected officials involved at the table when we're doing emergency management planning. I probably shouldn't go too much more, but Monday we had our central regional meeting in the morning early with Cindy Bobbitt. She's our chair. And a reminder to everybody, April is National County Month, right?
We used to do, yeah.
So I know we do some things. It's good to get that out there so people understand more about what counties do. So we had some sharing of ideas, how we can use our media and to get the word out about National County Month. And of course, as you mentioned, Vance, our U.S. Transportation Secretary, Elaine Chao, she's the first Asian American woman to serve as a secretary. And so it was good to hear her speak. Some of the news is kind of challenging, I think, because of the way where they're looking at infrastructure and looking at transportation, and the way it's going to be done going forward will be kind of a flip. We used to always get about 80% financing from the feds for these big projects, 20% local dollars. Well, now it's going to be the other way around. It's going to be 20% federal dollars and about 80% private and government dollars. Kind of a stimulus method that the Trump administration is trying to bring to see if, but I worry about some of these smaller communities because I don't know where they're going to come up with the 80% to get their projects done. Excuse me. I attended something called Vision, Values, and People, and it's about workplace culture and how important that is. And that's another issue that we talked about at our work session, the workplace culture, and to try to get all of us on the same page. It was a very good session. Of course, the Luck Rack delegation, we had a nice event that Van mentioned, and meeting Senator Tina Smith and talking with her. The Minnesota delegation, folks from our state, were there at Lock Ridge Grindal offices right near Capitol Hill. And it was early in the morning, and got to speak directly with her. And then, of course, our Minnesota visits on the Hill. Vance and I had a good time, and I will say it was nice to be swept away with our Senator Amy Klobuchar all the way down into the Senate, right to that little room that's basically gold-plated, and it's right on the Senate floor, right outside the door there.
Cool.
Yeah, so the media, I was surprised. They're talking about the budgets, and they're talking about federal spending, and there's a lot of issues going on there that week. And there was media when we got off the train. There was media every time we went somewhere different, wasn't there, with Amy? I mean, there's 20, 30 people standing behind areas with their cameras and microphones and just wanting to get one word from senators as they would pass. It was very interesting. I can say that she does understand Minnesota quite well and the nation. Let's see what else we've got here. I might as well flip on to just this last Thursday. When I returned, I did make it to the Human Services Advisory Board, and I had a very good meeting there. Phil spoke about some of the human services in our county and how we achieve the services. And then the Warm Our Hearts with MVAC on Saturday night. That was a very good event. I think they had a good fundraiser for Minnesota Valley Action Council. And they do a lot of our human services also for our community and provide a lot of support. So we need to continue to support and work with them as a partner. And then on Monday, yesterday, I attended our Safe Roads, Nicollet County, Blue Earth County Safe Roads meeting. And that's Towards Zero Death, basically, meeting. It's an extension. And we had a very good meeting. But our guests are not going to be providing free rides for St. Patrick's Day because we've got some issues with our vendors. and a lot of issues to discuss on how we want to move forward with contracting and who's going to provide services in our community. We even talked about notifying Uber and Lyft and all these other people about things so that they can be available when these events happen too. And maybe we'll even work some kind of a contract with different people. But just looking at things a little differently, so we're going to have some meetings on that. And then of course today we had our new employees meeting this morning. So just a lot of information. But I can tell you that the NACO conference, which will be my last legislative conference with NACO out in Washington, D.C., I encourage you all to go sometime. There's so many good workshops, and the information, it gives us forward thinking, and I hope I can send a few more notes out about this to everybody on our board, and Vance too, carry some of the words back with us. So important.
Always an information overload, isn't it?
Oh.
I mean, so much going on there.
It really is. I mean, you get back, it's like you just, where was I? But I hope that we can bring some value to it for our community here too, and I think sometimes just one idea can save our community from future problems, and it can also save us financially.
Absolutely.
So, for the good of the order then, is there anything else here at our board today? Bob?
That's all we have today, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Pat, anything? Anybody else? Okay, well, we're going to be extending this meeting. What's it called? I can't think of the word. Recessing it. We're recessing the meeting to the landing that's in Madison Lake. And public is invited if they want to come to our luncheon. And we'll probably get there about, what do you think, 11:30, 11:40?
Yep.
Okay, sounds good.
I'll move to recess.
Second.
All right, we're going to recess to Madison Lake.